Mr. Bob Schneider, one of my subscribers who is always commenting on my videos. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. Asked me to check out this stone. This is from Dan's Whetstones. It is an aluminum oxide man-made stone. I've been letting it soak in water for, I don't know, a couple hours. One side I kind of lapped just on a piece of glass. I didn't put any grit down because it has a coarse texture. I'm going to try both sides out, see how long that coarseness lasts. I got a feeling it won't last very long, maybe a few strokes, and then it's going to come off. This stone here reminds me very much of this stone. This is from the Smith's Tri-Home. You got a coarse, medium, fine. The coarse is made out of, I'm assuming, silicon carbide. The medium is aluminum oxide, the same as this. And the fine is just a natural Arkansas stone. But the color, the density, the way it feels, just everything about this stone reminds me very much of that one. So I've got a very strong feeling that it's going to behave in the same format. That is to say, it's probably going to load up. It's going to be fairly fine for what it is, but it's going to be aggressive enough that if you have a very damaged edge or need to reprofile, this stone can actually get you there. Nice thing about it is it's extremely cheap. I got this from Blade HQ, though you can order it directly from Dan's Whetstones. I got it from Blade HQ for $7.99, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's crazy cheap. They also had a Schrade old timer, which looks like it's just a silicon carbide, kind of like a Norton economy stone. So instead of just getting this stone by itself, I ordered that one as well. Unfortunately, it looks like Dan's Whetstone does drop shipping for them, so this arrived first. The Schrade stone is still in the mail. I've got several knives I'm going to test this on. Just purchased this one recently. It is one of those Y-Start. God, I can't remember the model number. I really like the shape of the knife. I thought it was, you know, a really fantastic grind, especially down here in the choil. Unfortunately, when I got mine, the plunge grind was jacked up. I had to enhance it, bring it out further, and then fuck it all up just to get a decent edge on it. What can you say? I mean, that happens on so many knives nowadays. It's ridiculous. Anyway, in sharpening this knife, I truly believe this is D2 steel. This stuff gave me fits. Very, very difficult for me to grind. Once I got the initial bevel set in, you know, it's smooth sailing after that, but the initial onset, getting this reprofiled, that was a booger. I got it nice and sharp and polished currently, so we're going to test D2 out. We're going to try my Spyderco in Maximate steel, and also M390 in my Socom custom. I'm going to go ahead and interject here. I did try, and you will see in the video, putting Maximate against this stone. However, there's almost no scratches that are visible from that stone. What you see here is what was existing from my silicon carbide, and this is what the aluminum oxide did. It kind of polished it. Very little cutting was occurring. I would say actually no cutting was occurring. It was more of a burnishing effect. So if you guys are curious how that stone works against Maximate, it doesn't. This steel is just too damn hard and too full of carbides. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this edge off and see what we can get going here. Now all these bevels are already set, so there's no reprofiling involved here. We're just gonna sharpen an existing bevel on this new stone. And like I said, I'm gonna try both sides because one is smoother than the other. and see how long that texture that's on there lasts. Check my grind lines, make sure that I am hitting my hole bevel, which it appears I am. When I got this knife, it had probably a 30-degree per side bevel. I dropped it down to about 15 degrees per side. So it took a lot of grinding to get this thing in shape. So right off the bat, the stone is definitely coarse. It took the polish right out. And the scratches look very similar to that Smith stone. I know KME uses a lot of Dan Whetstones. I know Gritomatic has their own. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Smith gets their aluminum oxide from Dan's Whetstones. That would not surprise me one bit. Getting a little load up in the stone. Now I'm using the smooth side currently. This stone would be perfectly fine to use with oil or water. I don't think you can go wrong either way. The water may wear the stone out a little bit quicker just because oil causes less friction. So whatever was remaining of that coarse texture that I didn't lap off is completely gone now, at least in the areas that I'm sharpening. On this side I can still feel them. I can actually still see it. There's still a texture there. Don't have a burr yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip this over. We're going to get this whole thing smoothed out. I don't know if you can hear the noise difference. That compared to this. Let's try that again. So that texture definitely makes a difference, but it comes off very quickly. Now, of course, I can reapply it should I want to with silicon carbide powder, just lapping it on a piece of glass, but it goes away so quickly. There's really no point for a stone like this. Now, a lot of times these stones are get confused with like the Norton India stone. I do now have a burr, by the way, all the way up the edge of this knife. These stones get confused with the Norton India stones. They're similar, that they're both aluminum oxide, but that's pretty much where it ends. At least my Norton India stone, it feels nothing like this. It feels denser. This actually almost feels like it could be friable, like it would actually shed some grit. My Norton India stone, there's no way that thing is shedding any grit. So I've got some buildup here. I want to see if I can spray it off real quick. See how compact in there it is. Yeah, that's not spraying off. So to get that out, it's going to require some sort of lapping, either with a Nagora stone or a diamond plate, something along those lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip over, get the other side of the knife going. Like I said, I've already got a burr. Now this side is fully textured. I want to see how long it lasts. That didn't last long at all. It's already smoothed out. Cutting speed, I would say, is not bad. It's fairly quick, especially for this D2. D2 hates me. I'm not disappointed with how quickly I raised the burr. And I've already got a burr on this side. Still need a little bit more work in the belly. All right, got a burr on both sides. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up a little bit, maybe get some of this load up off. Although I run the risk of impacting this stone, I'm gonna see what this Nagara can do to remove this load up. I got a little bit of it out, but there's still some impaction in there. It's good enough for now. We're just going to leave it. I will lap it later if I feel the need. So I've got a burr on here. I'm going to try to cut it off. Stones like this and other oil stones, Arkansas stones, the only way to remove it is to actually cut it off. So that's what we're going to do. Edge into the stone and just back and forth until we break it off. With my Smith's Tri-Hone, I use it both with oil and with water. I just mix it up, whatever I'm feeling that day. And of course I use it with that mixture that I concocted from Mr. McCullough's recipe, which is 4 parts water, 1 part dish soap, 1 part baby oil. I kind of mix it up to it's probably about 4 parts water, 2 parts baby oil, 2 parts dish soap. I don't quite do it the same way he does. I like it to be a little thicker. And this burr is being stubborn. Let's see how it works on M390. I've got some chips in this one. Not real bad, just little micro chips. But yeah, I've got some chips in the belly. So we'll see if this bad boy can take them out. So the stone itself is coarse enough it looks like to tackle most of the modern steels, but the scratch pattern it leaves behind is kind of fine. If I had to put a grit rating on this, I'd say it's probably around 700-800 grit. Coarse enough to do some work, but fine enough that I can leave a decent edge. Alright, so the buildup is starting to bother me, so I'm just going to go ahead and use an Atoma 140. Worth noting, the sides are not chamfered. Wow. Lapping this stone took a lot of effort. This thing is crazy hard and does not want to release its grit. Where I was talking about it felt friable, scratch that. No, nothing about this thing feels friable. I've already got an edge on this Maximate knife. I am not going to cut it off and see if this stone can bring it back. I am just going to see what the scratch pattern looks like, if it can even cut Maximate steel. And it feels like I'm ice skating. Let me try that with the D2 because it might be from the lapping. I can still feel it kind of grabbing the knife. The M390 feels like it's skating too. Feels very slick. But I can still feel it kind of grabbing it. So there is still a little cutting going on. This Maximate though, this thing just feels like I'm running it across a piece of glass. And it looks like it's kind of polishing the edge. The edge is getting just a little bit brighter, but there's no scratches in the bevel. Alright, so I'm going to call it here. I'm going to go ahead and strop these knives up and we'll test the edges. So for my strop, just going to use a piece of leather with metal polish on it. My hand is shaking like a leaf. 162. I think we're just going to go with the flats. We should be able to get a decent enough average from that. Anyway, the gentleman from the coning knife, or the coning design, has made a new sharpening system for freehand sharpening. He calls it the crutch. And it's basically a clamp that clamps onto your knife. It's got two really long screws that just glide across your countertop. And to set it, I assume you just use an angle cube. Get the angle that you want, set the screws and the nuts up on the clamp for that angle, and have at it. He offered to send me one to test out. So I'm looking forward to getting to play with that guy. And the final test. 120. Well, that edge tester never fails to surprise me. So both these knives averaged out to 123. My hand was shaking like a leaf. I don't know if that played any role, but that 162 number was very suspect. I know my hand was really, really shaky. As far as the feel, disregarding the numbers, it feels like a pretty polished edge. I mean, there's not much tooth, at least in the grippiness of it. This one's got some tooth to it. I can definitely feel it biting into my skin. I don't know, the D2 just kind of polished out all the teeth. I don't know if you can blame the strop for that or the stone. I would probably put my money on the strop though. Cutting wise, this one feels toothier. Regardless, nice edge. Really nice edge. For $8, You can't beat that, guys. You really can't. Let you guys get a quick look at these bevels. So this was fully polished before I started. And that strop did polish some of it, but you can still see the scratches from the stone itself. So this is the Socom, an M390. As you can tell, it's got a little bit of a hazy polish to it. It's not ugly. Aesthetically, it's not ugly, but I would prefer something a little more polished. Now this is the M390. You see real close to the apex, it polished up real nice, but going up on that shoulder, there's still some deep scratches. I don't know if that's just from my piss poor stropping technique or what the deal is. I noticed it on both knives though. That's also occurring here on the D2. Let me get this to focus. So you can see here the apex got nice and polished, but up on the shoulder, some deeper scratches. I'll have to revisit this again, figure out what I'm doing wrong. Is it my stropping or something else? Obviously technique's going to play a role, how well you can sharpen, but if you're just looking for a starter stone, there ain't nothing at all wrong with this guy. I would suggest getting something a little coarser to get you going, you know, that way you can set your bevel, get everything where you want it quicker than what this stone provides, because once it loses its aggressive texture, things do slow down. Using oil or water, that's going to be a personal preference. In my experience, using both is perfectly fine with that type of stone. I've never had problems using my Smith stone with either or. It loads up the exact same as that one. I don't think I've ever lapped this with diamonds, though. I've always lapped it with silicon carbide powder, which is more aggressive than the diamond as far as removing material. The stone itself, wow, it is extremely hard. It took some work to lap through and get this thing flat for one, and get all that load up removed for the other. I did chamfer the edges on one side, but the other side I left them sharp. So we'll see if that actually causes any chippings with further use. I'm sure it will, as it bumps up against stones and other things. I'm sure chips are going to appear. But as tough as this stone is, they may not. For $8, I can't steer you wrong with this one. This is a fantastic stone for the price. It leaves a very well refined edge. If it was the only stone you had, you absolutely could reprofile a knife with it, though it's going to take you a minute. The only drawback I can really see to it is that load up. Loading it up, and when it does go out of flat, which it will eventually, you're gonna have to figure out a way to get it flat again. You know, I use silicon carbide powder. I don't see that being a problem, but using a diamond plate, you're probably gonna wear your diamonds out really quickly with that guy, just because of how tough and how hard that stone actually is. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.